It is now 2 o'clock, so we are officially gonna kickstart the webinar today. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. If you've never used Zoom webinar, you're automatically on mute, and also your cameras are off, so don't worry about it. What we're going to be using today is the chat box. So any questions you have, any sort of comments you have, it's just making sure that you're in a place where you can type it all in. Just to check, can everybody hear me and see me okay? So you could just type yes in the chat box. Um, a couple of people I already know here. Hi, Gemma. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Renee, Aaliyah. Thank you so much for coming. Um, Also, just to mention, on your screens, you would see a hand raising emoji. Some of you have just used it right now. I call it emoji, but actually it's just a function, a hand raising function. This is something that we're going to be using a lot. So can we just try that as well? If you could just click on that hand raising function so I know that you guys are here. Amazing. It is working for everyone. That is so great. Guys, I am so excited to be here. This is a sold out event, which is just so fantastic. And we're going to be having some real conversations this afternoon. A bit of housekeeping rules is that the webinar is currently recorded and it's live on YouTube right now. So anyone on YouTube watching, hi, hope you're all well. But it's recorded not for external purposes, but for safeguarding purposes. But more so, I just want to make sure that you guys are in a place where you're present, where you can actually be here in this webinar this afternoon, because we're going to be having some real conversations, some real just openness when it comes to self-love, self-worth, and self-confidence. So we're gonna just take a couple of minutes for more people to join us, because people are always late. And so whilst we're waiting for others to join us, if you guys can just introduce yourself to everyone. So where you're calling or you're dialing in from right now, where in the world are you? And also, what brought you here today? So it could be maybe you heard it from your ACS, maybe from your university, maybe from Instagram, maybe you just saw it on Eventbrite and you're thinking, what is this event about? So just share with everyone what brought you here today. So you could just put it in the chat box. And again, if you could put it to everyone, so not just to myself, but to everyone that is here, that would be fantastic. So just introduce yourself. Hi, Louisa, how are you? Thank you for joining us. So just put it in the chat box. We'll give it a couple of minutes for more people to join us. So where are you dialing in from? That's the question. And what brought you here today? So what brought you here, again, can be anything. It could just be like, I'm a student and I just want to know more about self-worth or self-love, self-confidence. But where are you dialing in from and what brought you here today? Guys, I'm also so excited for this webinar because I have my mom joining us from Nigeria today. Can we just give my mom a high five? Could we do just a hand raising just to know that she's welcome? This is the first time my mom has seen me speak live in person, so it's just so amazing to have her here. So thanks, mom, for joining. Shout out to you. But yeah, just where are you dialing in from and what brought you here today? And then we're going to kickstart the webinar in a second. Hi, Grace. How are you? We've just started the webinar. You haven't missed anything. We're just getting into introductions before we get into today's topic. So you could just introduce yourself as well, Grace. Where are you dialing in from and what brought you here today? Amazing. So we have a couple of people from Cardiff, from Nottingham, Amazing. So thank you guys for joining. We have a couple of people saying, I just really love the sound of the event, so that's why I'm here. That's all great. What I love most about Zoom webinar is that it could literally just be me and you in the room today, and you wouldn't know. So today is very interactive. It actually takes us having a real conversation. It takes you thinking a little bit deeper about yourself, but also just being as open and honest as possible as people of color. What I love so much as well is that it's all females today in the room. How amazing is that? So I'm just hoping that we can have some fire conversations, guys, and that we can get so much out of it from the webinar today, but also you're going to get as much as you put into it. So just make sure that you're engaging, make sure that you're meeting new people in the chat box, and you're also trying to listen to what other people are saying. So Gemma from Cardiff, final year psychology student, and I'm always interested in to learn more about people. Also, hi to Liva's mom. Thanks so much for that, Gemma. Alia, calling from London. What brought me here was my ACS, and I just feel it's so important to have a reminder that I am, in fact, enough. So looking forward to this. I love that so much. Welcome, Alia. Okay, so we're gonna start the webinar, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to share my screen. And as I share my screen, I'm going to call out a couple of statements. And if you've ever felt like that before, if you've ever even thought those things before, I just want you to use that hand raising emoji. Like I said, today we're really going to be diving into those key themes of self-love, self-worth, and self-confidence as people of color. So let's get the party started right away. We're going to be here for 60 minutes together, more or less. And so the first statement is, if you've ever thought to yourself, I am not smart enough, successful enough, or pretty enough. If that's something you've ever said, a couple of people in the room, I'm going to put my hands up as well, definitely. If you've ever thought to yourself, the next one, just one second. I am not the kind of person who would do well at university or at a job. Maybe you've said it out loud to your friends, a couple of people as well in the room. Yeah. Okay. The next is, I cannot do this because of that, because of him, because of her, because of somebody else. If you've ever thought that to yourself, that is certainly me. I remember saying that, especially when I was at university. A couple of people as well in the room. Thank you guys for being so honest already. I'm so excited for what we're about to get through today. The next is, I'm always treated badly and nobody respects me. If that's something you've ever thought about before. Next is, I shouldn't ask for what I want because I would always get rejected. I shouldn't ask for what I want because I would always get rejected. Again, a couple of people in the room. Amazing. And the last one is, life is meaningless and is always going to be like this. I'm going to put my hands up right there with so many of you right now in the room. I think especially 2020, this is something that I've said time and time again, like it literally is always going to be like this though, isn't it? Thank you guys so much for being honest just right now. And it just helps me to get a feel of who we have in the room and what your thoughts are. Before we get into the themes of today, I just want you to humor me for a second because the whole seminar is going to be based on a plant analogy. And I use a plant analogy because I want us to get our foundation right. If I were building a house right now, the first thing that they would tell me is, Talua, you need to get your foundation right. Your foundation needs to be strong. So before we even start to look at self-worth, before we even start to look at what self-confidence looks like for us, for people of color, we have to start from the basics. And the basics here is self-love. So in this beautiful picture right now in front of you, you are the seed. And as many of you would already know, a seed can only begin to grow if it's placed in good soil and if it has enough water and sunlight. But the soil is the foundation. So before we even go any further this afternoon, I want to kickstart the first question to you guys. is what does self-love look like to you? When you hear that, does it have any meaning to you? Does it hold any importance in your life? What does self-love look like to you? So again, just a couple of minutes, and when you're ready, just share in the chat box to everyone as well so that we can really start to get the conversation going. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes and then I'm going to read out your sort of thought processes. What does self-love look like to you? We have a couple of people saying, Gemma, I love what you just said, not feeling, oh, this is a good one, not feeling guilty when saying no. Good. So trying to set healthy boundaries there. Someone has also said, actually just loving myself for me in spite of my flaws. I love that. Loving myself for me in spite of my flaws. Alia, I would say putting myself first and appreciating the fact that I am not perfect. Isn't that just so amazing? Thank you so, so much for sharing that. Grace is also saying self-love is just being patient with myself and with my journey. Again, I love that so much. So thank you so much for sharing. Guys, make sure you just keep putting your thoughts in the chat box. And at some point, even if I don't see it now, I will come back to it and other people can see it as well. So I think what is interesting is that for me, when I look at self-love, same with what some of you have said, being patient with myself. But the question I ask is how do I nurture that self-love? Is self-love is the foundation to where I want to get to. How do I nurture self-love? And for me, that's actually the answer there is in self-awareness. You see, self-awareness means a true recognition of both your strengths and limitations, both your strengths and your flaws. An awareness of your strengths and limitations is actually an awareness of your character, meaning you're more likely to leverage your strengths to overcome challenging situations. You're more likely to ask yourself, how can I use my strengths to overcome this particular challenge I'm facing? How can I use my strengths to get more of what I want? How can I use my strengths to add value to somebody else? I'll give you an example. Let's take it that you had 10 coins and each coin was worth £1,000. You all can see this beautiful coin. So let's take it that each coin was worth £1,000. And £1,000 is obviously a lot of money, right? If you lost this one coin, you would probably spend a lot of time looking for it. You probably spend a lot of energy looking for this one coin. Even though you still have nine, you will still put a lot of energy looking for the one. And when you find it, you're more likely to celebrate it, tell people about it. That's the same for us. A lot of us have 10 strengths or more. And when we use one strength, or when we even use a strength that we didn't know we had, what happens to us is that we just pass by not celebrating or sometimes not even acknowledging our strengths. And that's really dangerous for our well-being. So my question to you right now is, what are your strengths? What are your strengths? Is this something that you ever thought about? Is this something that you actually are aware of? What are your strengths? Because I think it's so easy for us to see the strengths in other people, right? It's so easy for us to celebrate the strengths in other people. Oh my goodness, Emma is so great at this. Look at what Grace is doing. Look at what this other person is doing. But when it comes to us and just acknowledging our strengths, a lot of us are like, I'm not that great at this though. Maybe we're more likely to focus on our limitations and our weaknesses. But my question right now for this seminar this afternoon, I just want you to have a think about your strengths. What are they? And when you're ready, just pop it into the chat box. And also, if you're struggling to think about your strength, that's okay. I just want you to type that in as well. Actually, I'm struggling. Actually, I've never really thought about it before. Because what we're going to do next is build on some of those things that you've mentioned. Like I said, this seminar is for you. And it's just me and you right here today. So just have a think. What are your strengths? And then we're going to come back and share. We have a couple of people saying I'm struggling a bit. Actually, I've never thought about that. Thank you, Alia, for being so honest. Grace is saying, actually, also I don't know my strength. Never really thought about it before. Another person has just said empathy, being open-minded. That is such a beautiful strength. Another person is saying patience, question mark. Tell you, I don't know if you're putting a question mark behind patience. If you're asking, is that a strength? But I would just tell you, you only need to meet somebody who is not patient for you to recognize that patience is a fact, a key strength. Louisa is saying patience as well. So Louisa, I can walk into any room and have the confidence just being who I am. I love that so much, Louisa. Louisa, you need to be here. You know, this seminar is you. You're meant to be hosting this seminar right now. I love that so much. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And if you're here and you said, you're struggling with identifying your strengths, I just want you, I just want to encourage you to take some time after each day and just try it out for like 7 days. Just take some time after each day and think about your day and put your thoughts down on paper. You see, because oftentimes our strengths are hidden behind our stories. So if you've had a bad day, our strengths are often hidden behind our frustrations. Why did that particular thing frustrate you? Why did that particular person frustrate you? And just asking yourself and why again. The same thing is when you've had such a great day. Why was it such a great day? A lot of the time it's because we've used our strengths in a particular in a particular environment. So for example, if you've been around your friends and you've been laughing a lot, your strength is in being able to just form relationships with people, either virtual or in person. So I just want you to take some time each day to just think about your day and ask yourself why, why. But I place so much emphasis on acknowledging and celebrating your strengths. Because when we do this, that's when we begin to internalize and recognize our worth. I am worthy. I am worthy of this place, of this course, of this job, because you have taken the time to be self-aware. Does that make sense to you guys? If it's making sense, can I just see the hand raising? Yeah, couple of people, the hand raising emoji. Also, guys, just a quick sidetrack. The hand raising emoji is so key for me. I call it an emoji still, but you know what I mean. Because obviously I love giving seminars live and seeing people's faces and their body language, but I don't have that right here because of 2020. So the hand raising emoji is the alternative to that. It just lets me know that you're still here, you're still with me. So if there's anything I'm saying throughout this whole seminar that you resonate with, that you vibe with, please just use the hand raising button just so that I know that you're here. Okay, so once we recognize our strengths, this brings us now to the branch of that same seed. This seed planted in the soil of self-love starts to grow. And what that starts to look like is an internalization of our worth. And before we move any further, I just want to make a quick statement. Because I think so often when we talk about self-worth, it becomes so easy to talk about the happy story, the good story, the happy ending. But the truth is, especially as people of color, we will have unpleasant experiences in our lives. We will make mistakes. We won't always get what we want. And that's all part of life. That's all part of being human. But the problem is, and I really want you to hear me when I say this, because this is the foundation of low self-worth. The problem is the belief that the challenges you face, the mistakes you make, the uncomfortable situations that you're in signal something about your worth. The belief that unpleasant things in our lives are actually all that we deserve. And that's what we need to start to unlearn. Because the truth is, sometimes the worst moments in our lives are, in fact, the moments that would bring us to really understand our worth. So there are two things I want to highlight here really quickly, because I could talk about self-worth forever. But the first thing is, when we're looking at how we nurture self-worth, how do we have more of this beautiful thing that is self-worth? The first thing is where we go for our validations. Where we go to for our validations. An important question to ask yourself from time to time is, where is my validation coming from? And I know that this question is so tricky, especially in this age of social media. But from time to time, you just need to check yourself. Where is my validation coming from? Because if I'm to be really honest with you this afternoon, the only validation that matters comes from here. It's that inner validation. And what that looks like is that we're going back to our strengths, is that you're asking yourself time and time again, how can I use my strengths in X and Y situation? Because this allows you to not become so overwhelmed by a situation or by a challenge, but to just take that pause button and shift your mindset, your perspective. It also means that you don't fall so quickly into comparison or asking yourself, look at what that person is doing, I can never be that person. You recognize you. You see you. You recognize how beautiful and unique you are. Your worth rests on your inner validation. So as you may have realized already, a strong theme here is knowing your strengths. And I place a lot of emphasis on it because this is the key to a lot of doors. Some of you may already know that I'm originally Nigerian. Big up if any of you here are from Nigeria, any of you watching are from Nigeria. But there's a saying that my nan used to say to me when I was younger, that the bird will never discover its true abilities if it keeps trying to be like the monkey. Climb trees or hang on monkey bars when it can actually fly over them. You see, you can only really start to walk in authority when you understand your identity, when you understand your character. And that's why self-love has to be the foundation before you get to a place of knowing your worth. Again, because it means that you've taken time to invest in yourself. What am I good at? How can I build on this? What are my limitations? How can I build on this? How can I learn more? How can I grow from this? That is what makes your worth. You're not really focusing on what other people say or how other people see you or if they like you or approve of what you're doing. And I think especially at people of color, because we face so much structural challenges, that inner validation is so key. But the other thing worth mentioning right now is that when we're talking about self-worth, nurturing self-worth, you have your sort of worth coming from you, the validation coming from you. But what complements this, on the other hand, is the ability to recognize the power of choice. You see, another thing that hinders our self-worth a lot of the time is when we are stuck in the if. How many of us have ever been stuck in the if? If you've been stuck here, just let me know. A couple of us in the room, I think almost everyone in the room. If I had only gone there instead of here, if I had only had these opportunities, if I was only X, Y, and Z. Hell, when I was younger, I would say things like, if I was white, I would be here, X, and I'll be here, here, or there. But what happens here is that we start living in the prison of our own making. Likewise, if we spend our time in the future saying, I wouldn't be happy until I leave university, I wouldn't be happy until 2020 is over, I wouldn't be happy until I'm in this job. The only place where we can exercise freedom of choice is in the present. It is in the present, it's in the now. And when we start to live in the present, that's where we start to take responsibility for our own lives. This means that we start to recognize the aspects of our lives that are in our control and the aspects that are beyond our control. And I know some of you here have heard me talking about this before in previous seminars or events. I'm so big on the power of choice. The aspects of our lives that are in our control and the aspects that are beyond our control. So right now we are about to go real and get deep. Because I want you to think about some of those things as a person of color that are making you anxious right now, or that are making you see your worth in a different way or hindering your self-worth. What are some of those things? Just have a think. And please, guys, let's be honest and let's be real, because that's the only way we can learn from one another. What are some of those things that are making you anxious right now, that are hindering your worth or how you see your worth? Because we're going to build on some of this activity today. So a couple of minutes and then we're going to come back together. We have some people saying, thank you guys again for sharing. I just love what I'm seeing so much. Some people are saying my inner inability to do things, definitely. We have some people saying as well, when I read the stats, isn't that real? When I read the stats of people of color and the unemployment rate, it gets me really anxious. I'm right there with you, and that's so valid. We have some other people saying, actually, just if I'm going to get a job after university, is that a possibility with everything that's going on? Again, that is so valid, and I hear that a lot as well. Please keep sharing your thoughts. I would love to hear from everyone because we are really going to pick those thoughts apart. What are some of those things that are making you anxious right now? Alia, thank you so much for sharing that. So, being in a work environment with no diversity and no Black people, I have been right there with you. So I definitely know how that feels. Thank you for sharing. We have another person, and I hope you don't mind, Grace, but I'm just going to share this with everyone because I really love what you've just said. So Grace has just mentioned, just in terms of being financially independent, is that ever going to be really possible as a Black person in this country? Thank you for sharing that. Again, just practical things that might be in our head right now. And I've definitely shared that sort of thought with you as well in the past. Gemma said, as a person of color, it can be difficult being on a course being a minority, psychology can be ethnocentric. I'm right here with you at times, and finding ways to relate can be challenging. 100%. Ali again, so not being able to be comfortable in life and being able to take care of your family, isn't that a real valid thought process? So thank you so much, guys, for sharing. Please keep your comments coming through. But one thing I just want to quickly mention before we start to build on some of those things you guys have mentioned and you guys have shared with us this afternoon is that you see, the mind has the power to be our own prison or our liberation. The mind has the power to be our own prison or our own liberation. So, a lot of the time, when we feel like we have no control over our circumstances, when we feel like there is nothing I can actually do here, when we believe that nothing we do, nothing in our control, will ever improve our lives, that's when we stop taking action. That's when we stop showing up for ourselves because we believe that there is no point. But when we start to train our minds, and that is the great news, is because we can all train our minds. Because I say this time and time again, is that the mind would always trick us. The mind would constantly lie to us. So when we start to train our minds with the ability to recognize the aspects of a situation or thought process that is in our control and the aspect that is actually beyond our control, that's where we can actually start to channel our energy and focus our energy on the right things. When we start to train our minds with that. So before we go any further again, from those thoughts that some of you have just mentioned, I just want you to have a think. What are the aspects of the situation that are in your control? And what are those that you need to let go of that is beyond your control? And whilst you're having a think, I'm going to give you an example of my own life and why this particular activity is so key. So, of course, when COVID-19 happened, it's still happening. So when lockdown happened earlier in the UK in March, I was totally just confused. In my head, I'm like, how am I going to keep going on? Because what I do on a day to day is traveling for events, is speaking at events, is creating value for my clients. And just the passion I have for mental well-being is being able to share that with people. So if I wasn't able to share that with people, I was like, so what's the point of actually being here? So for about 4 weeks, I was just in a spiral of low mood because I didn't even see a point of the rest of the year. And I remember going for a really long walk and just saying to myself, actually, Tolua, everything that you focused on right now is beyond your control. So of course, I can't control the fact that COVID-19 happened. I can't control how the UK responds to COVID-19 and health organizations respond to COVID-19. But what is in my control are still the skills I had. I was still the same Tallulah as I was before COVID-19 and the lockdown happened. So the skill sets I had was still the same. The value I had was still the same. The passion for the cause I had was still the same. So it was about focusing on those things that were in my control and asking myself, how can I channel all of this through a different path, a different avenue? And it was just me leaning more into Zoom, leaning more into online events. And so that's what I'm asking you today. Just changing your focus, your perspective. Because I've honestly been so shocked by the amount of opportunities and relationships I've been able to build from just leaning into online stuff. And I wasn't a fan of online events at all before the lockdown. So that's just something I want you to think about. From the things that you've shared this afternoon, what are some of those things that are in your control? And what are the others that are beyond your control? So Alia, you've mentioned just your work environment right now with no diversity and no Black people, and that can be really hard. But just have a think of that as well. That is there any bits here that are in my control. And the same thing, guys, if you're struggling to think of those two, of those different aspects, you could just put that in the chat because that's okay too. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what's in my control and I don't know what's beyond my control right now. If that's something you're struggling with, you could just put it right in there. No pressure at all. But I just want you to have a think. Just try. What are some of those things that are in your control? And what are some that are beyond your control? So someone has just said, what I can control are my skills, working on myself and being able to just be a better version of me. That is so, so, so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Grace. There's something I always say that is, as long as you are a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, that's all that matters. That is the key. As long as you are trying to improve, you're trying to grow. Because even in a challenging situation like 2020, there is so much that can be learned. There is so much healing that can be done. There's so much breaking that can be done. So the trick is really in shifting your perspective, shifting your focus. What are some of those things that are in your control? Gemma, it'd be great to hear from you as well. Just key things like this, like obviously being in the whole psychology sector, and how you relate to it. What do you think some of those things are that are in your control and some that are beyond your control? So I'm just going to give you guys a couple of minutes and then we're going to share. All right, so we have a couple of comments coming in. Really amazing. So another person has just said, actually, just trying to make new friends is something that is in my control rather than complaining that 2020 is not my year. I love that so much. Yeah, so just being proactive, that proactive nature, willing to do something about your situation. Amazing, Adia. Maybe I can focus on me getting to where I want to be and hope that me being in that work environment would encourage employers to increase diversity. 100%. Adia, we're going to talk about just your environment in general later on in the seminar, but thank you so, so much for sharing that right now. But I think what you've said there is so key. So focusing on you, that is the biggest thing that can be in your control right now. What I want to do right now, guys, if you allow me, is to take you through some key day-to-day hacks that can really help us with a positive mindset, with a growth mindset. That when we're talking of this thing of nurturing self-worth, the things that we can do on a day-to-day to empower us with that skill set and with the challenges that may come your way as people of color. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do, once you've really set your minds on, okay, what are the things that of this particular situation, what are the things that are actually in my control? The first thing is goal setting. Just setting some goals. I want you to listen to me, guys, because unless you have clearly defined goals, you would never run in the direction that you should. Because it is so easy to get distracted and sidetracked by what other people want, by what other people are telling you, by the needs of this world in general, and actually forget what matters to you the most. So what I do that helps me, and I know it helps a lot of my clients as well when it comes to goal setting, is to just make a to-do and a could-do list. And I know that we all know of a to-do list, of course. But what is important here, why I love the to-do and could-do list, is because When I wake up in the morning, for example, I have 101 things that are fighting for my attention. So I have to ask myself, what are the three most important things that I need to do today? And it could be today, it could be this week, however your sort of environment is structured and your needs are structured. But what are the three most important things? And I don't have more than three. I strictly keep it to three. And those three things would be on my to-do list. Now, on my could-do list would be everything else. So I know a lot of us here use social media, which is key, right? And a lot of the time I use social media to interact with people about their mental health. But the truth is I cannot spend my whole day on social media because that would be counterproductive. So what I do is, say for example, in the morning, I structure 30 minutes of my day. And I just say, okay, I'm going to do this on social media. I'm going to talk to these people. I'm going to raise awareness about this particular issue. And I put that down. And then I go to the second and third thing that is important to me. So it could be about focusing on a particular project, writing a blog, whatever it is. And it means that everything else, all of the distractions that come through in the day, it could be somebody replying to somebody's message on social media. It could be checking my emails. It could be making a phone call to that friend's dog, whatever it is. All of those things are on my to-do list. And what I love about the to-do list is because I can still visualize it. A lot of the times when I feel overwhelmed by a situation or when I feel like, oh my goodness, there's so much to do in the day, why I feel like that is because it's all in my head. But when I start to visualize it, when I just put it down on paper and I can see clearly my goals, the things that are most important to me right now, and the things that could be done later. And also, your goals don't have to be tangible goals, it could be emotional goals. Actually, I just want to feel energized by the end of the day. I just need some rest by the end of the day. Because goal setting is important to nurturing our worth and feeding that inner validation rather than looking at what other people are doing or what other people want us to do. Are you guys still with me? Are we still here? We just use the hand raising button. Yeah, okay, we're still here. Amazing. The second thing I want to talk about is actually just focusing on your triggers. What I find from a lot of my clients who are so anxious, who are in a valid way, confused or just in a low mood, is that we are often unaware of our triggers. What triggers you to think that you are worthy? What triggers you to think actually I'm not enough? What triggers you to think I don't deserve to be here? This job is not for me. What are those triggers? You see, what we feed our thoughts with, what we feed our mind with is so important. It could be conversations that we're having with people. It could be things that we're looking at on social media. It could be things that we're reading on the news. Setting healthy boundaries is so, so important. If you're aware that your triggers come from social media, then you have the power to control that. You have the power to unfollow people, just the same way you follow people, right? If it's coming from the news, you have the power to manage that. All of this stats somebody mentioned earlier, actually just the stats I see from the news about unemployment rates for Black people. That is a valid sort of stats that they have. But if it's not helping you to be productive, if it's not helping you to be the best version of you, then you need to realize how to manage that, what you're taking in on a day-to-day basis. And the last hack I want to just give right now is REP. And this one I love so much because it's so easy to remember. Rep. And before I go into what REP is, I just want to quickly say some feedback that I've had, particularly from this hack. Because a lot of people are finding this is something that is so practical that can be used like that. When you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling low. REP. So R stands for reframe, E stands for evidence, and B stands for plan. So reframe, we've already spoken about that. Reframe is basically just looking at the situation through a more optimistic lens. You can see 2020 as this is bad, this is the worst year, there are no jobs. Or like I said, this is an opportunity to work on me. Reframing your mind. Evidence is one that I love so much because this means you're looking at a particular situation through an objective lens, using data to prove to yourself why that thought is not true. This is not true because X, Y, and Z. So, data here stands for the things that you have done. Let's say, for example, you're going for a job interview. We've all been for job interviews. It could be an internship, a part-time job, whatever it is that you've gone for. And you're feeling nervous. Maybe you're thinking, why am I even here? I'm not going to get this job. This is the worst. Why have I done this? Or you're going for a really important meeting. You're thinking, I'm just going to say crap. This is not going to be good. Evidence means that you're saying that is not true because actually I have worked hard to be here. I have researched the organization. I've spent 2, 3 days, I've spent 8 hours, whatever it is, researching this organization, putting time and energy to know what I need to know. It could be the same. And like I said, you're going for a really important meeting and you're saying to yourself, actually, they're not going to like me. They're going to think I'm undervalued or, sorry, overvalued, etc. And you could just say to yourself, actually, I've worked hard to be where I am today. I have this degree. I'm working on this, and this. I have this strengths. Again, that's why I said it's so important to know your strengths. Using data to prove to yourself that this thought is not true. Because, like I said, the mind would always lie to you. And then we have P, which is for plan. So P again means if X happens, I will do Y. And I love this because it just allows you to create an in the moment contingency plan, which means you can take a breath, you can relax a little, and then go into the situation feeling a little bit more prepared, a bit more oomph. That you can go into a situation with authority, that I am who I am. Plan means, let's just use that job interview example. And I say, okay, oh my goodness, what if they ask me this question that I don't know? Okay. If that happens, I will tell them, thank you so much for asking that question. This is part of the reasons I want to work for your organization, because I think I would love to learn more about this particular skill in addition to the skills I already have, which is X, Y, and Z. And in that moment, just even telling myself that allows me to take that breath and then go into that situation, just be me. Do you guys understand that? Is that clear to everyone? REP. Yep. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. All right. So the important thing that I want you to take away right now from here, the question I want you to ask yourself tonight, this afternoon, after this seminar, is how can I use my strengths to leverage the challenges in this situation? The situation can be whatever is most in front of you right now, whatever is most important to you right now. How can I use my strength to leverage the challenges in this situation? If it's patience, if it's a love of learning, how can I learn more about this? How can I be patient to the people around me? How can I be more empathetic to the people around me so that actually we can build more relationships, authentic relationships? So that's what that question is. How can I use my strengths to leverage the challenges in front of me? Right, so this brings us to the last thing that we're going to explore today, which is self-confidence. And I place self-confidence as the last thing. Because before you get here, before you get to a place where the leaves start to bloom and you're now really confident and that comes out externally, you have to have worked on your that internal validation, the awareness of your triggers. And I think especially as people of color, even when we've worked on ourselves, even when we know our worth, we sort of nurture our self-love, we might still have things that shake our self-confidence. on a day-to-day basis, and that's okay. But what I want to leave you with is an important piece of advice. And I'm going to give you an example with this. So when I was in secondary school, I completely hated sports. Sports wasn't my forte. I wasn't great at it. My parents can confirm. I was better at things like dance or drama, arts, but sports wasn't my forte. But every time we had a long, a sort of race, so like a 1,500 race, a 800-meter race, etc., I would always find myself on the team. Just, I don't know how, but I would be on the team. And that's because somebody somewhere would have dropped out, and the coach is like, right, Talua, I guess is you. You are our final choice. All right, come in. And I think I hated running even more because I knew that I wasn't going to come first, second, or third. So in my head, it was like, what's the point of running this race? But anyway, I would get on the racetrack on the D-Day, literally with no energy. I would be so frustrated, so angry, and I would start running. And of course, because I wasn't good, I wasn't winning the race anyway. And the other team members would now have been on the second lap or the third lap or whatever, and I would still be on my first. And every single time, just as I'm about to give up, just as I'm about to be like, what is the point? I'm just gonna not even finish the race, but just cross over the line and tell coach, adios. Like, I was never gonna win. At that moment, as I'm about to give up, I would see my team members either to the left or to the right of me, just saying, Talua, keep going. You can do it. Keep running. And at that point, it would be like I had new bones in me, like my strength was revived and refreshed. I would find energy that I didn't even know I had and start running like I had the eye of the tiger in my head and just start running to the finish line. And you see, the important thing here wasn't if I won the race. The important thing here is that I finished the race, that I completed the journey. There's no doubt that 2020 has been a hard year, and I think it's especially even harder for people of color. But right now, more than ever, you need your tribe. You need the people around you that you trust, that would tell you to keep running. That when you're telling yourself, I'm not enough, they're telling you, actually, you are enough. When you're telling yourself, I can't do this anymore, they are telling you, you can. You need your team members. Because no matter how much you've built your self-worth, you've built your an awareness of your strengths and your weaknesses, your environment, who you're surrounding yourself with, matters. You see, a seed can only grow to the plant, to the fruit that it has been called and destined to be. When it's in the right soil, it has sufficient water and sunlight, but it's also in the right environment. Like a seed will never grow if it's under the bed, in a cupboard, in another shell, because that is not the environment for the seed to thrive. So who you count as your network, who you count as your friend, even if it's a family member, those things matter right now. And I place so much emphasis on the right environment because if I was to take you back to the Nigerian saying I shared earlier with the bird and the monkey knowing their true abilities, let's just take, for example, that the monkey spent its whole life with birds. From the start of when the monkey was born to when it died, the whole life with birds. What's probably going to happen to that monkey is that it would probably never discover its true abilities because it would spend half of that time trying to be like the bird because that's all it knows. And actually, the bird would also not try and cultivate or nurture the growth of the monkey. It's most likely to look down on the monkey and say, actually, you don't have the same abilities as I. You're not on my level. So what's the point of us even hanging out? But if the monkey was to surround itself with other types of animals, with the fish, with the elephant, with the ant, recognizing that every single person has a different purpose and uniqueness to bring to the ecosystem. That is when the monkey can actually start to work on itself as well and nurture its growth and add value to the people around them. You need a combination of your awareness of your character, your strengths, your weaknesses, and to place all of that in the right network to really grow to the full person you have been called to be. So, before we bring this seminar to a close, I want to highlight a really key takeaway because I mentioned earlier that you cannot begin to walk in authority if you do not understand your identity. You would always question your worth. It might not be now, it might be next year, it might be next week. If you're not taking the time to know yourself, if you're not taking the time to invest in yourself. There's a beautiful quote I love that says, "You may not be able to make yourself well, but you can call the doctor." So that means you can go to more seminars, you can invest in you, you can get a mentor, you can take the time out to learn about your strengths and your weaknesses for that self-reflection, to build the foundation for your growth. So the last question I have for you today, guys, is what are you going to start doing differently today? What is your key takeaway from this? If we were to come back next week and I say, Alia, how are you doing? What have you started to implement in your life? Gemma, what have you started to implement in your life? Louisa, Renee, Grace, what have you started to implement in your life? What would that be? Because you need to be accountable for your actions, to take responsibilities. And that's why I love this seminar. And that's why I always encourage us to write it down. Because the more we write it down, the more we are telling ourselves, actually, I need to do this. I need to take responsibility for this. It's not up to anyone but me to do this for myself. So that is the last question I have for you today. What are you going to start doing differently to show up for yourself? So when you're ready, guys, you can just share in the chat box. We're almost to the end of the seminar, I promise you. Just share your thoughts, share your processes down. And then we're going to come back and I'm just going to read that out. So a couple of minutes and then we're going to come back together. So we have a couple. I'm just going to read the ones that have come through to me first. And said, I'm actually just going to take time out to learn my strengths. It's something that I struggle with, it's something I don't know. And it would be so great to take the time to learn on my strengths and focus on my weaknesses. So thank you so much for sharing that. Again, like we've said, taking that time for self-reflection is so key. But oftentimes our strengths are our personalities, the things that we think, but isn't this what everybody else has? It's not unique to me. It actually is your strength. Not everybody can be as patient or empathetic or have the same energy as you. So just take time out to definitely learn what your strengths are. And also, I'll just encourage, if you're struggling with your strengths as well, just look up the VIA character survey. The VIA character survey. It is highly recommended in positive psychology. Researchers around the world have recommended the survey, and I use it as well with my clients. And I know from time and time again, the first 5 strengths that always come up, people can resonate with. I did it myself, and I was like, yep, humor, fair enough. That's my strength. So, yeah, just have a look at the VIA character survey. Okay, so we have from Louisa to set some good stuff for yourself, rewards for completing my to-do list that would boost productivity and self-love. Yes, Louisa, you better celebrate those strengths. I love that. Alia, be involved in more seminars like this. And from today, I would like to identify my strengths and understand how I am as a person. Yes, Alia, you better walk in that authority. Gemma, I really love the analogy of the monkey and the bird. As an introvert, it can be tricky sometimes, but I definitely think working on nurturing and building the tribe can be something to work on. I just love that so much. And do you know, I just want to say something about the tribe because it can take some people years to figure out their tribe, their support network, and that's okay. And it can take some people maybe just their time at university. But I think the point here and the difference here is the willingness to find that tribe. This thing we're talking about in nurturing self-worth, all of it is intentional. You have to be intentional to give that time to say, I need to find my tribe. And if I'm speaking to people or if I'm in an environment that is not my tribe, I need to set those boundaries. Because if people are not nurturing or cultivating your growth, then they're only pulling you back or keeping you in the same place. And you're not able to do that for them as well. Albert, thank you so much. I'm going to stop beating myself up and start being a friend to myself. I love that. I will find my value myself without just relying on external validation. 100%. So thank you so, so much for sharing that. Guys, a lot of what we've been talking about today, we're about to end with that. We started the seminar with some negative statements that we may have thought about ourselves, but now we're going to end with some positive affirmations. And y'all, I got to tell you, I love affirmations because they're a really great way to break any sort of negative thought process you have about yourself. That every time you are tempted to fall back into an old way of thinking, you can just replace that thought with a positive affirmation. After this seminar as well, you're going to get a feedback form, which I encourage you to please fill out. But in that feedback form would also be a 30-day daily affirmation guide. Over 120 people have now downloaded it. And honestly, I'm so encouraged by the feedback with people being able to support themselves on a day-to-day base with their mental well-being, because it's so easier said than done. Sometimes you come for the seminars, you feel inspired, you feel empowered, and then tomorrow is like, I haven't done anything. But the affirmations count as a way to remind you, as a just something that you can see, that you can visualize and begin to work and invest in yourself. So we're going to try that right now, some of those affirmations. And the first of that is everything I need is within me. We spoke about being stuck in the if or being stuck in the future. Everything I need is in the now, is within me. I can. I can shift my focus. I can look at an aspect of a situation and ask myself, is this beyond my control? What is beyond my control? What do I need to focus on? The next is my potential is endless. And I really love this one because it's allowing us to circle back, to focus back on your strengths, to focus back on the things that come natural to you, on who you are, your personality. My potential is endless. The third is there is something in me that the world needs. If you've ever felt an imposter syndrome, if you've ever felt that I don't have any place in this world, I don't have any place as a Black woman, I don't have any place as a person of color, you just need to retrain that thought process because this is the truth. There is something in you that the world needs. And sometimes those are just in the conversations that we have with people. Today, I will choose how I respond to the situations around me. Again, this is circling back to the power of choice. I will choose how I respond rather than react to the situations around me. And the last is I am enough. Period. What else? End of story. I am enough. In that degree, in your psychology course, in your job, you're just remembering that actually I can only be who I am. How other people see you, how other people react to you, respond to you, it's things that are not in your control. All that is in your control is how you respond to situations, is how you invest in yourself, how you love yourself, how you are a friend to yourself. I am enough, period. So, guys, this marks the end of our seminar today. It has been such a pleasure to speak to you, to be able to just have a conversation and hear your thought process. Like I said, a feedback form is going to be coming your way right after this. And I just encourage you to please fill in the feedback form, because there you would also have the 30-day affirmation guide if you wish to download that. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. If you have any questions, please do stay behind. Let me know. You can type it in the Q&A box. You can type it in the chat box. But this marks the official end of the seminar. So if you have stuff to do, it's 3:06 right now. Thank you for joining me. You can do get on with your day. But if you have any questions, then please do ask them right now. But like I say, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here for an hour. It's been such a pleasure speaking to and listening to all of you this afternoon.